TwinSpark, der Motorrad-Podcast.
So we are live and welcome everybody to the first podcast of 2024. And like in 2023, our first guest is an international guest. Last year we had Gorm from Sweden. Today we welcome Paul from South Africa. Hi, Paul.
Hi guys.
Hi, Paul.
Lovely to see your faces. Thank you.
Lovely to meet you.
Yeah. And before we start our conversation, we have to say hi to our mutual acquaintance, Rob, who introduced us.
Yes.
This podcast wouldn't be happening without Rob connecting us. So thanks, Rob. Thanks for doing that. I hope you enjoy the podcast as much as we do.
Thanks, Rob.
So for you, Paul, the first questions every person has to answer first in our podcast is, how did motorcycles find their way into your life?
Yeah, I suppose much the same as most people. I think I was first introduced to motorcycles at about the age of 13 when there was a guy who to me was like a superhero. He was probably 18 or 19, who had a BMW R65, I would say, and in the church. And he took me for a ride on his motorbike, which I thought was brutally fast. Now, as we know, the R65 is certainly not a brutally fast bike, but to me it was just quite extraordinary. And just after that, he had a DKW two-stroke, I think a 50cc, which he let me ride. And I remember doing, I think it was about 50 kilometers an hour, and I was astounded at the rate that trees were flying past me at 60 kilometers an hour, but I was hooked. So I would say that was my introduction to the freedom and the thrill of motorcycles. That was it. I was hooked.
That sounds quite good. It's quite a similar story to some of our guests that told some of our guests before. So you started with the two-stroke. Which was your first very own motorcycle, or how did you
Which was mine.
Get your first one? Yeah.
Okay, so that's also an interesting story. So my mother, who was vehemently against us riding motorcycles, she didn't know that we had these hidden motorcycles, little 50cc's. They were called items. It was a Garelli. They were Italian motorcycles in those days, also two-stroke 50cc's, that we then bored out to make them 70cc's to make them faster. And we thought they were brutally fast as well, but they were not at all fast. And so we used to hide these at my friend's place and sort of collectively owned them. We didn't really own them, but it was like a collective understanding that we all had as these young guys. And my mother never knew that we were riding these bikes until my older brother, who was 15 months older than me, chopped his finger off trying to change gears at the cogs because the cable had snapped, and he put his hand down to try and actually change gears, and got caught in the chain of the cog, and it cut the tip of his finger off. Just the tip. It wasn't major, but that was like her introduction to our motorbikes. At the age, I reckon that stage I was about 15. Yeah.
The proper way
also
as
illegal.
your mother
We
wants
weren't
to
legal,
find out.
it was all illegal. But lots of fun.
Yeah, especially for your brother, I guess.
Yeah.
Was she angry?
Sorry?
How bad was her?
So at the moment, he's got like on the tip of his middle finger, he's got a little bump. It's almost like a little head on his finger.
Okay.
So it wasn't critical. He didn't lose his finger, but he lost, let's say, the tip of his middle finger.
Mm-hmm.
And but that was fine. We got through that.
Was your twin brother?
No, that was my older brother. My twin brother and I were riding together, but my older brother Steve, he was the one that happened to him.
Okay. So not a how should I say, not a topic where we can separate you from your twin brother.
Yeah. But then at that point, my mother still didn't know that we collectively owned the bikes. For her, it was just someone's bike, that happened, and we shouldn't have been doing it. Because in those days, no one wore crash helmets or any protective gear. It was just wild and raw,
Yeah.
like it should be. If you want to really experience the thrill.
Absolutely. What was, if you collectively own them, did any guys, and you modified them, did anybody of you have a clue what they were doing?
Yeah, we did. We actually,
okay.
we understood motors quite well. We had a guy who was renting a part of our house from us. He was 21 years old, and he was a very good mechanic.
Okay.
It wasn't his main thing. He was a computer scientist for those days, but he had what was called a Ford Anglia, and we used to modify this car, and he taught us everything about cars. So we were like his appy. He'd say, pass me a size 12 spanner and do this and do that, now loosen that. So we started actually learning about how to work on engines and things like that. So we had quite a passion about engines and speed and everything like that. So, you know, we had this wild interest in engines.
Very good. So you had a better experience than I had, because I started out on a 50cc Vespa, which is way too slow, and I started modifying it. I didn't have a fucking clue what I was doing, so I went through like 2 or 3 cylinders before a friend of my father who used to own a car shop told me, come down to the shop, I'll help you out. And then we properly modified the Vespa to a 75cc cylinder at the time. And he showed me how it was done properly. And after that, I learned welding at his place. And in the end, the Vespa had like 133cc and 9 horsepower, which was really decent at the time.
Exactly.
But it's good to have somebody showing you the way around.
Exactly. I think this is really what it's about. I think it's you know, I think most of us, if I really think back on kids and the introduction to motorcycling, or any sport for that matter, but to motorcycling, it's those moments that you pick up that are just absolutely incredible. But then there's also your superheroes. I remember telling my father about a guy who would have been about 18 or 17, who also had a motorcycle that he had also seriously modified, but that was maybe up to about a 90cc. And I remember saying to my father, Dad, you can't believe it, this bike, the acceleration, it was almost like if you were looking at a movie of a motorcycle riding down the road, and then you cut it, it stopped, and then you start it again. So it was almost as though he didn't need to accelerate it already, he stopped speed. And this is, you can't believe the speed of this thing, that it was incredible that he could actually achieve this so quickly. But meanwhile, it's probably getting up to 80 kilometers an hour in 27 seconds, you know.
The freedom of riding.
And then thereafter, I had a Harley Davidson. My twin brother and I, we bought, and it wasn't for long, but in the military in those days, they used to ride the old Harley Davidsons, like an old Steve McQueen style thing, that had the gears on the tank and a sidecar. And it was painted in this raw, matte military green color, very crude, almost like a tractor. And they had an auction, and you could buy either a donkey for 5 South African rands or a Harley Davidson for 25 South African rands, okay? We bought the Harley Davidson, and it was, again, totally unroadworthy, totally unlicensed, totally whatever. And we didn't have it for long, but we had that. That was our first intro to like a slightly more powerful machine. And again, the brakes were bad. Everything was bad about it. We shouldn't be alive today, but we made it somehow. Somehow we got through it, you know.
Oh, that sounds crazy. Really cool.
So what did you do? You had your first bike, a Harley Davidson. Did you just cruise around? Did you go exploring South Africa, or what was the goal with riding the motorcycle?
Not at all. We actually lived in a city called Pretoria, which is near Johannesburg. And in those days, Pretoria was quite a simple city, maybe not quite a village, bigger than a village, but it was quite simple. Very safe to ride around and do stuff. So we could experiment with stuff. I mean, we ended up rolling my father's car because we had a particular corner that we liked doing. So one of us would stand, it was a blind corner, and one of us would stand on the pavement and then and wave if there were no cars coming up from the opposite direction. We'd come flying down and somehow make it around the corner. And then the one way we didn't make it and we rolled the car. So we were quite wild when it came to stuff like that, but just typical innocent boy stuff, you know. And then thereafter, my twin brother, I'd moved to Durban and I bought myself a 175cc Honda, CB 175.
Mm-hmm.
That was now a major upward move for me. And it was a beautiful bike. It's still such a classic if you look at them. And I was living in Durban. I'd met this beautiful girl, and she was my girlfriend. We used to ride around on this bike. And I'll never forget that one day I managed crossing on this bridge, a river called the Umgeni, which is a Zulu word, the Umgeni River. I managed to get up to 160 kilometers an hour very briefly on this bike.
Mm-hmm.
And I really thought that I discovered the ultimate in speed. And then my brother came down to visit me, and he had bought what was called a matchless G15, which is a combination of a Norton 750
mm-hmm.
and a matchless scrambler frame. And I took this thing for a ride, and suddenly I was catapulted into a power that I just couldn't believe existed. You know, it was a 4-speed gearbox, but I'll never forget pulling off in first and then pushing my foot down with gears. You had to click down, not up like on a modern bike.
Yeah.
Going from first into second, and this brute force of this bike that again had drum brakes in the front and terrible braking. So I went straight up to Johannesburg and bought one. And so that was my next brutal bike, which I had for a while, but it had, the Nortons vibrated a lot, and they didn't have what was called isometric suspension in those days, which was rubber mountings. This particular bolted straight onto the frame. So everything used to just crack off from the vibration. And when you got off the bike, your hands were actually frozen from the vibration. It was wild and beautiful. And so I had that bike for quite a while. I blew the motor, snapped what's called the primary drive chain, which is the chain that goes from the back to the back of the engine to the gears and to the crankshaft. Twice that thing snapped and went flying through the case and just missed my feet.
Okay.
But, you know, but I loved it because I used to, every weekend I would tune the carburetors myself with what was called amyl carbs, and you could sit there with a screwdriver and you could like do the accelerator and try and get the left carb to match with the second one, listen as they dropped. And every weekend I would do that, and just to get the bike perfectly tuned, and it was magnificent. It was the most beautiful bike.
Other people do yoga, you do carburetors.
No, exactly. No, yoga is a waste of time. So I want to introduce what I call. So I've only got, because I do have a lot of patients actually, but I'm not the sort of person who meditates. I medicate with things like beer and whiskey and old fashions. So I medicate. I don't meditate, but I want to do like a 20-second yoga, which I don't want to call tantric yoga. I want to call it frantic yoga. So for 20 seconds, you can do yoga. So that's why I will do yoga, but only frantic, and then back to the motorcycles.
Sounds crazy.
That's my passion.
By the way, I'm just having a look on Google on the bikes you are telling us about. And as you are telling, I guess 160 on this Honda feels really, really, really fast.
Yeah, it shouldn't have been that speed. I mean, I'm sure the speedometer was not accurate, but I managed to get it to clock at 160. I did blow that engine up as well in doing a long ride somewhere, but yeah, that was another story.
So
I'm not a wild rider. I'm not an idiot on bikes, quite honestly. I'm not the sort of guy who's looking out to kill myself.
No, it doesn't sound like this, but you're a proper rider, I guess.
But I do like speed,
Trying to get the best out of the engine, and just a little bit more and just a little bit more. Am I wrong?
Exactly. There's that wonderful saying that says, faster and faster, I must get it right, faster and faster until the thrill of speed overcomes the fear of death.
Yeah, I can relate.
That's what it is. I think that's what it is, you know. Yeah.
I think maybe this describes the feeling some people call this the speed tunnel or tunnel of speed,
Yeah.
where you just are you and your bike and nothing else and
Oh,
nothing
oh,
surrounding.
oh
Mhm.
yes. Oh yes. That is
I,
my ultimate.
and
When
I
you-
have an exact picture in my head of what you just described in your saying. I felt that in the very moment riding a BMW S1000RR for the first time
oh,
on the German Autobahn via Garmisch. And,
yes.
and exactly like the bike would look like 6 gear, 8,000, 9,000
Yeah.
RPM, 260 kilometers an hour. And I couldn't decide, is this really gonna, I'm just gonna cut my pants. I don't know, but it's like do I go faster? Do I decelerate? I don't know. It's
Yeah.
just like,
I was actually astounded. You know, the first time I rode, because I had the K1300R, the BMW,
Oh boy,
yeah,
which
yeah.
was
oh
also
boy,
their naked bike, and it
torque
was an
monster.
extraordinarily powerful, fast bike.
Mhm.
I used to love the power and the speed of that. And then the one day, my son, who's now 30, but he would have been about 25 then, we took the R9T, which was just been launched,
Mhm.
and the 1000RR for test ride.
Okay.
And we swapped around. And I'll never forget, on what we call our N1, our main road, he was on the R9T and I was on the 1000R. And we both looked at each other and said, like, now we need to accelerate. You know, we both got down to like third or something.
Mhm.
And it was so brutal and so wild. And suddenly the world, it was just, everything was just like flying past me. And then he also had the opportunity. And when we got back to drop the bikes off, he said to me, Dad, there were two bikes, hey? There were two. It was just, the other bike just faded into insignificance. And he
Mhm.
said, there were two. I said, yeah, there must have been, because there were two of us. He said, yeah, there must have been two bikes. But that 1000R, I would never ride that bike again on the road. That's a track bike and only a track
Mhm.
bike.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
masterpiece. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And the R90 is no small, no slow motorcycle. It's really a capable machine.
Yeah.
But if you put it next to like this
Yeah.
incredible four-cylinder,
It's,
everything else fades.
yeah. It does. It really does. It really does.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
Absolutely.
So let's jump forward a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm wearing this cap. This says the House of Machines.
Yes.
What would you describe the House of Machines to a complete stranger? What is this?
So I would say if you, in fact, I met two girls from Holland, from Amsterdam this evening. I was at one of my other favorite bars called the Power and the Glory earlier on, and they got chatting to me, and I told them about the House of Machines, and they said to me, "Well, what is the House of Machines?" And I said, "Well, the House of Machines, in a lot of ways, is a house. It's to us, it's a place of community where not only like-minded, because not everyone's a biker, but where like-minded tribes of a type would get together, no age definition, and relax and enjoy life. So the theater of the House of Machines is, without question, is the heartbeat of the motorcycle.
Mhm.
But the actual reality of the House of Machines would actually be a place where you go and you listen to incredibly good music, because we have live music every night at a very high level, and then also exceptionally good cocktails. And we've had this award now, well, we've had a few, but we got an award last year as a top high volume cocktail bar for South Africa, and I think Africa and the Middle East, if I'm not mistaken. But so it's a place where people can comfortably just fit in. We find that there is no age barrier, and there is no music barrier, and there is no drink barrier. But those are our three strong points, and the motorcycle. So I would say only about 15% of the people who come to our bar are true bikers,
Mhm.
and they really are. But I think girls get attracted to the idea of guys on bikes. So they will go there for that because it's sexy. And guys go there because they know
They are
the wild
sexy.
girls who ride bikes are going, who don't ride bikes, who like bikers, are going to be there. So there's a sort of a there's that wonderful attraction, that tension between the two. But then, once you get there and you become a part of it and you start visiting it, there's something about the magic. I mean, it's 10 years old now, but everyone says to me that they walk in and they feel comfortable. They feel instantly comfortable at home and part of it. And I think it's actually, it's the house. We call it the house. We call it THOM, and it is. We say, welcome to the house. And it's got that wonderful warmth about it, that the staff are wonderful. They're the ones who make it all happen. And that, I mean, it's without question, that's actually your blood that runs through it. If you don't have that, you've got nothing. So we're rigid on the type of people that work there and the delivery of what we do. So I'd say the House of Machines is a place for everybody. It doesn't hinge on motorbikes. It hinges on a lifestyle and like-minded people. So that's probably it.
Was this the original idea? So did you pitch this idea or did you have this idea in your mind before you developed the House of Machines, or did it become like it is now?
No, I'll tell you what it was. It actually was totally different. So before I had the House of Machines with my twin brother, and I still see the word twin in the background on your image there. but there we go, it's gone. But my twin brother and I, about 3 years before we had the House of Machines, we had a very big cafe bar, which we called Speedway 101, again, because of our passion for bikes and old retro cars. And it was in what's known as the Old German Club in Cape Town, which is probably the oldest club in Cape Town. And it's in an area in Gardens that no one really knows about. It's this beautiful old building, big. It's got a dance hall which can take 500 people on a sprung wooden floor. It's got 2 bars. It's got the oldest bowling alley in the Southern Hemisphere and a big parking area in the front. And my twin brother and I managed to get this, just very fortunately, as a bar, which we opened up. And it was very successful, but it was a crude bar. I mean, it wasn't fancy like the House of Machines. It was like a bar. And on Thursday nights, for instance, we would have arm wrestling and stuff like that, So it was a proper bar, but guys would arrive there with their beautiful old muscle cars and old motorbikes and modern, but it was in a suburban area. And what would happen, we'd only close at about 2 or 3 in the morning, but by that stage, the guys would be revving their bikes and cars and doing burnouts and going mad, and the people were throwing bottles at us from the apartment buildings around us and screaming at us like banshees because we were making so much noise. Ultimately, we lost the lease and we had to move out of there. And then I had nothing on the go. And then I got a phone call. I'm in the clothing industry and I buy textiles in Bangkok from Japanese wholesalers. And I was there on business, and it was 5 a.m. in the morning, and my phone rang, which is midnight in South Africa, and there was this Australian guy on the line, and he said, "Hi, mate, my name is Drew. You don't know me, but I've heard a lot about you, and I believe that you love motorbikes and cafe races, and you think you're maybe doing another one." I said, "Yeah, actually I am." He said, "Well, so am I, mate. Why don't you come and see me when you're back?" I said, "Gee, that'll be amazing." And we then met about a week later, directly opposite where my bar is at the moment. There were these steep steps up to an office, and he was standing on the top of these steps, and he looked down at me, and I looked up at him, and he said, "Hi, mate, I'm Drew." And I said, "Hi, you Drew, I'm Paul." Put my hand up, and he shook hands with me, and I'm giving a very sort of shortened version of the whole story as far as I can recall it. And I think before I even got up to the steps, he said to me, "I get a gut feel about people. I like you. Let's do it." And I said, "What?" He said, "The bar." I said, "Okay, cool. Let's do it." And we shook hands. And that was our partnership has never had a signature. It was a handshake. And he's been insanely loyal to it. And I can honestly tell you that I would say 127% of everything that we are today, I must give Drew the credit for. I'm just like the creative and the facing of the brand. Drew's the guy that holds all the contracts together, makes sure he even knows that I've just picked up this beer right now. But he must take all the credit for that. He's almost background, but totally front of house and in control of everything. And so, and then we found where our bar is now. A friend of mine who's a Dakar, well, he doesn't do it anymore now, but he was a Dakar motorcycle rider. And he saw me from his, which was then an office, and he waved at me through the window, and I went to his door, and he designs high-speed boats, frigates and stuff, or whatever they call them, for Norway and for the Nordic area, for the Navy there. He's an architect. And we sort of basically said to him, wow, we love your spot. He said, I hate it. Everyone thinks I'm a bar. And we said, well, we think it's amazing. And then Drew sort of said, but I'm trying to get the time and I'm to drive. Drew sort of said to him, well, I've got an office upstairs if you're interested. And we did a swap. And that's how we got the bar. Okay. And so now you ask about the bar the way it is. So what it was going to be right there and then was we both had this passion to build cafe races and motorbikes. So the whole bar was actually going to be a workshop, except for the first 2 or 3 meters going in with a counter that was going to be a little coffee bar. We would sell beer and coffee. And that was actually what the concept was. And then, fortunately, because you don't make money out of building cafe races or stuff like that, I've got a friend who's very strong on coffee. He introduced proper coffee to South Africa in 2002 with a concept called Vida e Café, which was a Portuguese coffee called Buandi. And up until that point, we used to make our coffee, taking it out of tins, bad coffee. It wasn't really proper coffee. And then I remember how we used to put sugar into the bottom of the cup with the coffee, and then you would crush it like this and put a little bit of water in it and crush it to a little bit milky, and then add your hot milk, and then you'd have what we thought was a cappuccino.
Okay.
And then he introduced coffee in 2001 to South Africa, and it became very, very successful. He then sold it and then introduced craft beer to South Africa with a brand called And Union, which is now all over the world. And again, no one knew what craft beer was in those days. Everyone was just drinking basic bad beer. And so I introduced him to Drew, my business partner, and Drew said, well, why don't we work with him? Let's bring him on board, and he can do our coffee and our beer for us. And right there, and then we decided that we were going to extend the cafe bar further back with the bikes right at the back, which is what we did. The concept behind the bar, so we went to New York, and we went to, all over America, looking at what you call prohibition bars from the old days. So our idea was we must have and we still got these big black boards at night that we put over the window and seal everything up. In the prohibition days, the guys used to have boards like it, and they'd look through like a little keyhole in the window. And if you looked as though you were safe, they'd let you in and come and have a drink. And so that was our concept around it. But the other concept around it was when I was a little boy, I had a Superman outfit. I think I've still got it. I wear it quite often. And then,
why don't you wear it now?
I can, if you'd like me to,
Absolutely.
But anyway, so I had the Superman outfit, and I'll never forget how, when I was this little boy, I used to, on a Sunday afternoon when my parents and my uncles and everyone were sitting in the lounge in our house in Pretoria, I would go flying, I wasn't running. I'd go flying through the lounge with my Superman outfit on, with my arm out like that. And I would hear them say, fuck, there goes Superman. You know, they, in those days they didn't swear, so maybe they said, gee whiz, there goes Superman. And then I'd come back about 5 minutes later as Clark Kent, quite normal. And they'd say, Superman was there. I'd say, where? No, he came flying through. I said, oh, okay, well, that's cool. So I was Superman, okay. And that feeling, you must have had. Spider-Man was somebody in your childhood that was something, again, a superhero thing. And that feeling never leaves a guy. A guy's got to have a superhero or be a superhero.
Yeah.
And so what our concept was, my style icon and hero is Steve McQueen. No one did it better than Steve McQueen. So whether it was like a man of style in a suit and drinking really good bourbons and with the best, what's the name, watch, what was that famous racing watch that they had? It'll come to me now, but it doesn't matter. And he had the perfect cufflinks and he had style. And then other times he was dressed raw in his jeans and his T-shirt, riding a scrambler or riding like a motor race like the Le Mans, whatever. But he was our superhero. So when we put the concept together, everything we did about putting that bar together would be, if Steve was alive today, what would you do? So it was, what would Steve do? So that went down to the bourbons, went down to the style, went down to everything. Steve McQueen was the man. And then even taking it down to the bike. So let's say, for instance, you had never ridden a motorbike before, but we had this incredible cafe racer bike parked outside. Now, you come to the bar the first time, you're not a rider, and you walk inside and then you look outside and you say, geez, that's such a cool bike you guys have got there. And I said, do you ride bikes? Then you say, no, I'm not into it at all. I said, well, why don't you come and have a look at this bike? So you look in it and I say, sit on the bike. And at that point, you're a little bit nervous. You say, no, it's cool. I say, no, just sit on. And the second that you actually swing your leg over the bike, grab the bars, and as you sit down, Cape Town freezes. The whole bar freezes. Everything freezes. And everybody spins and looks at you on that bike and says, fuck, there's Steve McQueen. So that's the vibe. In other words, you become a superhero. And
I totally
that's really what the bar's about,
Yeah.
That's what it's about.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
And actually, the bar is not too big. I mean, if you enter, you have the longer bar, as you said, and there's a smaller workshop in the back, and that's it. It's also the street you're in is a rather small street, so. I've never had the chance when I was in South Africa 4 weeks ago to be there at night. But it was during the afternoon. My first stop after flying into Cape Town was like, I got to get to the House of Machines. So went to the colleagues, had a beer, bought this cap. But it's like you're coming in and you're like, this feels good. I like to be here. Just as you described. Well, I'm a simple wired guy, but this is totally does it for me. I mean, like, no fancy, no nothing, but style, but not overboard. But it's like really, as you described it, it really could feel that. It's like everything's consistent, and also the guy behind the bar was so super nice.
Amazing.
And you, like, as you described it, you suddenly get in contact, you chat about him, and then this is really what makes you, like, if you like, it's like you own the right motorcycle. When you swing a leg over it, you're like, this is my bike, and you come into the place like, this is the place I want to be in. So it's like kind of consistency there.
Yeah, I think that's really the secret is the comfort and the honesty of it, the naturalness. It's a very pleasant place to be, but you will come across people, let's say, who are bikers, and you'll meet for the first time, and there'll just be this bond of common understanding. Doesn't matter whether you ride a Vespa or a super bike. And the amount of women that have actually got into the culture as well, And so people meet people. I've got so many people that I've introduced to the bar, like those girls tonight, they will be there later. I'm going to go there later. It's what we call an open mic night, which is a night where anyone can actually go and perform. It's not a karaoke, although I'd love to have a karaoke bar. It's not a karaoke night. It's where different performers are given the opportunity to expose themselves and just experiment. So you get what I call the good, the bad, and the ugly there on that night. And there are so many musicians today who came 10 years ago, 8 years ago, 6 years ago as unknowns and amateurs and performed at open mic night that today are very serious musicians and have done exceptionally well. So even that is an introduction for people to style. And then the other side of it is with our cocktails. Most people really don't know the difference between a good cocktail and a bad cocktail. But again, because of Drew and his standards, our cocktails are of the very highest standard. We don't cut any corners. We won't go and get a cheap this or cheap that. We've got only the best. And because of that, people get exposed. And we're very famous for what we call our old-fashioned, which is a famous, probably the most famous cocktail drink. And everybody says, listen, no one makes an old-fashioned like you guys. Everybody. They will come back for the old-fashioned. I can't take credit for that. I can't even pour a glass of water there. So if you take me in the House of Machines, I'm not the managing director. I'm the damaging director.
Very
Oh
good.
boy.
Very good.
I'm so curious about the old fashioned at the House of Machines. I have to travel there and try it because I think it's good that you mentioned it because a few weeks ago I was in Berlin and we were at the bar and ordered a one old fashioned, and it was that ugly. It was the worst old fashioned I've ever tried, and so I think you can check if the bar is a good one, if the old fashioned is a good one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's true. I mean, you can, some cocktails to me just taste like really cheap, like flavored cool drinks, if it's not done properly. There's definitely an art to it, and our guys are extraordinary. We had a guy called Luke Wookie right in the beginning, and he had a bar that Drew had met him in Singapore. He had a bar in Singapore called Operation Dagger. Now, Operation Dagger was a cocktail bar in Singapore, and I think he was consistently number 21 or number 24 in the world in terms of cocktails. And he actually came out to South Africa. It was a friend of Drew's, and he actually trained our guys in the art of cocktails.
Okay.
And was with us quite a few months, maybe 3 or 4 months. Amazing man, amazing, beautiful, humble soul. And you can say he can take the credit for the standard that we are today.
I'm really curious. So, would you describe the perfect cocktail ingredients or the perfect way to make a cocktail? The recipe, the ingredients, the person who makes it all together?
Yeah, it's all of that combined. So there's little secrets in it, that I would say add that little, what you call the added value to something, or the stuff that maybe doesn't belong in other drinks. And I don't know what they are, but Luke was the sort of guy who would disappear on Table Mountain and come back with sticks and stones and mushrooms and insects and whatever. And he'd put these little concoctions together of masterpieces, that were intellectual, you could say, as opposed to just like a wild cocktail. It was an intellectual process. And I think that's really the secret behind it.
Mm-hmm. I have to ask you one question. The motto you have also in your merchandise and also in the store is "Don't be a dick." Explain that to us.
So that's actually quite a good one. So the reason why we got "Don't be a dick" is we normally do a ride out once a month where we do what we call our riders table. So if you go onto our Instagram site, the House of Machines, and you'll see something called Riders Table, which is our other Instagram site. And once a month, we do what we call our ride outs. And the wonderful thing about ride outs is that anyone's invited, from the smallest scooter up to the fastest superbike. And we one day even had something like 260 people riding. Normally we get about in between about 50 and 80 people going on a ride. And we'll do different rides out into the country, like pre-planned routes, and just have an amazing time collectively riding. And we'd stop at different places, have coffees, and then come back to the bar and have like what we call a braai, where, we've got food going and stuff like that. So in the beginning, when we used to do those ride outs, as guys are, you'd have to have guys that have to show that they've got a bigger dick than you. And so they would go wild on the bikes. They'd pull off at high speed, do wheelies, come screaming past you, then come back the opposite direction towards you, wheeling, and just going completely mad, and actually upsetting everybody. So whenever we used to do a ride, one of us was going to lead the ride, would stand on a table or a chair and start talking to say, listen, guys, we're here for the fun together. We're here to whatever. If you want to disappear on your own, you can go and do your ride. We really don't mind. Don't feel offended by it, but don't be a dick. Just don't be a dick. And so it essentially comes out of that. And it's a very good philosophy in life, It's become quite extraordinary how it applies to everything in life. It is such a powerful statement. Just don't be a dick.
Yeah.
And
as simple as it is, but yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, we had a guy, I'll never forget, there was a guy from America who borrowed a bike from a friend of mine to go on a ride out. But he was one of those guys who had to prove himself.
Okay.
So he went flying out on this guy's bike at high speed, but was like sort of wheeling and then sliding the bike and whatever. But in the process, he caused two guys to ride off the road onto the dirt and nearly have a very serious accident. But he had also damaged this bike that he had borrowed. And he came back, and we were all very angry with him. But the guy whose bike he had borrowed used to be one of South Africa's boxing champions. Okay, a lightweight boxing champion, and a very, very nice guy. And I remember walking to this guy who had now damaged the bike, and I said, listen, I just need to tell you something. You're in big shit. What you did was unforgivable. And this guy's actually going to come and hit you. He's going to beat you up. I'm just telling you right now. My suggestion is you go straight to him right now and you apologize and offer to pay for everything. But you've been an absolute dick, and don't do that again. And so he did that. And fortunately, he was able to get away without much damage. But that's what it really applies to, as everything in life, We've never had a fight in 10 years in our bar, ever. We've only had 2 fights, actually, that I can recall, and both of them were with my wife and I, and she won both times. Otherwise, we've never had a fight.
So what is then the motorcycle community like in Cape Town, and what role does the House of Machine play? Is it one of the major hangouts? Are you the epitome of the bike scene? So tell us about that.
Yeah, I'll tell you the story about it. So right in the beginning, when we opened the bar, I was probably the only true biker. Drew can really ride a bike and ride it very well, but he wasn't always in South Africa, and he wouldn't use a bike as his everyday transport. Me, on the other hand, I had a Land Cruiser, which I never, ever used. It doesn't matter whether it was summer, whether it was winter, dark, cold, wet, doesn't matter what. All I ever rode, ever, was my motorbike. I just simply couldn't resist it. I mean, I just rode just constantly. It was my passion, And then what happened was we did some ride-outs, and they worked quite well. They were going quite nicely. And then I had a critical motorcycle accident 1st of September 2017 at 6:15 p.m., where I was seriously, critically injured. It got to the point where my femur was chopped off, but been held by the tendons. My artery was nicked, and I landed on my head. I had front lobal damage. My arm was broken, but I was wearing the correct gear. I had my leather jacket on, my gloves, my loose leather jacket that I paid a fortune for and had for like 20 years. And I had the gloves, and I had all the right gear, except I just had jeans, not the leather stuff. But I was wearing my Lee 8 neck brace, which I used to swear by. And people would say, Paul, why are you wearing that damn thing? I said, you know what? I'm sorry, it's like, why do you wear a seatbelt? And so I landed on my head, and my neck shot back, caught the brace. The brace came down, but protected my neck on 100%. And the pressure of the brace broke my arm here, my shoulder. But my neck was perfect. But my leg was essentially chopped off, and I died on the road. I was actually dead. But being the luckiest man who ever died, 20 meters, not even 20, 15 meters away from me, parked opposite me, waiting for a colleague, was an ER ambulance with a full medical team. And there they were, seeing me flying through, and they ran to me, and they took a chance, and they actually stabbed my heart with adrenaline, and they managed to bring me back and stabilize me. So I was stuck on the road for quite a long time, and lost a lot of blood. And then I ended up in intensive care. And then again in intensive care, I died again, and they got me back. And so I was in hospital for quite a while, not months, but for quite a while. And then I was in a wheelchair for 7 months, and then crutches for nearly 4 years. So I've only actually been walking for about 2 years now. And they were actually going to amputate my leg 2 years ago because of all the nerve damage and pain, but I decided not to, thankfully. And so in that time, we actually lost the actual heartbeat of the brand of Bean Motorbikes. And then I said to Drew at that time, I said, Drew, you know what? We are supposed to actually be motorbikes. We're doing something wrong here, and we have to bring the thing back, which is what we did. And I was never part of it. I was always there and witnessing it and being a part of it, never being able to ride the bikes. And so we started building that culture again. So if you say, we are definitely prominent in the bike culture. The bike culture in Cape Town is a hidden mass of people. Because, when it comes to bikes, you get your old school guys, and you get the guys who got their motorcycle clubs like Mother's Worry leather jackets with Mother's Worry on the back or whatever. So you get all these different gangs of bikes. I think ours is one that we don't have all the big jackets saying stuff like that. You might have "Don't be a dick" or stuff like that. But it's definitely the go-to if there's going to be a ride-on for people who love bikes and who love the passion of it. But we often start our ride-outs from different places. So there's a place called Just Like Papa, which is a beautiful outdoor gear stuff that is of the highest level of outdoor gear. It's like the toy shop, like a 5-year-old toy shop for adults of every single hunting knife and axe and whatever of the highest level. So sometimes we will start the bike rides there, or we'll start it at Frankie Fenner, the meat merchant, or Jason the baker and stuff like that. So we bring those collective people together with us, and we do the ride outs from there. So it's a collective community of people who like coffee, who like beer, who like bakers, who like toys, and all of that sort of stuff. So it's more like just guys being little boys, being little boys and loving life for it, and girls. So I keep forgetting that girls are very much part of this culture. Do you ride bikes at all, by the way?
Yes, absolutely. So I
do
own 3 motorcycles. And yeah, it's I'm very passionate about it. So it's my biggest hobby and a very big part in my world and in my life.
Wow. Yes. And do you mind telling me what bikes you have?
So I do own a S1000R from to the S1000R from BMW.
I love that bike.
The single R with 4 cylinders. And from 2015, the one with the open and the closed eye, so this winking kind of face.
Yeah, I love that.
Then my second bike, it's the same like Alex has. It's a BMW F800 GS. For
the 800, that's too high for me. I find the seat is too high, but I do love it.
Yeah, it's quite high, but I'm also quite tall, so for me it's fine.
And well, I don't think I've ever met a short German.
What would I say?
And then your third?
My travel and a little bit off-road bike. And the third one is an old Honda NTV 650, which has the 650 engine from the Honda Africa Twin years ago. And it's the same building gear as me. So this was a hard bike for me.
Oh, that's amazing, hey? That is amazing. Oh, wow. Yeah, so you're going to come and ride the new 1000R is beautiful, hey?
Sorry?
The new BMWs, the new ones that have come out now are quite extraordinary. Quite extraordinary.
Okay. Which one do you like?
So the one I want to get for myself, because then what happened, I had 6 motorbikes when I had my accident.
Okay.
And, I couldn't ride, I couldn't do anything. So I got rid of most of my bikes. I've still got an R80/7 in its original condition, which I don't ride. But I had a K1300R, I had a Triumph Thruxton, Motor Guzzi VR7, a
Oh, perfect.
1200 GS, a Yamaha R, what was it? R6, R3, I think it was, that I gave to my son. Yeah, there were 6 bikes altogether, but my favorite bike, I would say, and my K1300R, but my favorite bike would have been my 1200 GS. That to me is just, I found that if I did a long distance trip up to Johannesburg, let's say 1,600 kilometers,
Yeah.
when I got there, I would go straight to the bar and have a drink with my friends. Whereas if I went up on my K1300R, I'd probably be in hospital in traction, you know. And that was
Yeah.
the difference. You just find yourself smiling on that bike, you know.
Absolutely. I totally feel it, because it was about 650 kilometers for my day trip I did to Berlin from Munich. But
Okay.
I got off the bike, and like someone else is going half an hour to the fitness studio. It's around about the same state of exhaustion. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's
so perfect.
amazing, eh?
So you told us about your injury. Do you ride motorcycles again?
After my accident, yes.
Yes.
So I do ride motorcycles again, and I'm planning to start riding more and more, but I will not do any town riding
Okay.
because that's where it all happens, you know. And it was literally 2 blocks from my house where I had the accident.
Okay.
But and it was an idiot who just suddenly turned out and rode head on into me. So it was unavoidable. But I find with town riding, with country riding, we have exceptionally good roads. Even our single lane road, our twin lane roads where you don't have a double highway, the surface, there's no potholes, they're smooth. We've got beautiful corners, beautiful for bikers. It's beyond heaven. So, but the bike I want to buy myself now, and the one I experienced a few times, but my favorite one at the moment is what's called the R1250R,
Yeah. So
which
the
is
boxer
the
engine and the
sport version.
naked bike.
Yeah, that bike for me does everything. You see, because my leg is actually not very good, it's a little bit shorter now than the other one. It's got a very big hole in it. Um, uh, so I don't have too much strength, and the bottom half of my leg from my knee down is mostly dead, like underneath my foot. And that. So when I ride a heavy bike and a big bike, I actually don't know when my foot is actually really planted in the ground. And that for a while, when I started riding again, it was a big fear of mine. I found that I was holding the bars. I discovered much later that I was being an idiot. I wasn't let the bike ride. I was actually holding tight onto the bars and nervous when I stopped that my foot's not going to be down. So I stopped all like this, you know, as opposed to just relaxing and let the bike stop, and which I now do. But it was a problem. Whereas, like with the 1250, because we've got a low center of gravity, or the R9T, I find is an easy bike for me to ride because you're so low and planted, you know.
And low center of gravity helps a lot.
Yeah, yeah. And then also the other thing is now BMW are bringing out their bikes now with the suspension that lowers automatically when you stop. So now if you ride the new K1300 GS, it's actually, you don't have to alter the seat. It's actually just goes lower. Which I think,
and the fun thing is, you don't feel it. I wrote this when the press release was in Spain a couple of months ago, and everybody told us that this is going up and down. And I expected to feel it, but doesn't. You start the bike, it goes up. You stop, it goes down. You don't feel a thing, but you like I'm not a short person, but for a shorter person, that's totally helpful and gives you confidence in the bike. So that's really a nice feature.
Exactly. And in fact, I'm feeling very honored because, you know, the CEO of BMW, who's just retired.
Yeah.
What's his name? Marcus Schramm.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah, Marcus. You know Marcus Schramm. He was you could say he made BMW what it is today because he has been there since I think 2018 as the head of BMW Motorrad in Munich, and he's really been the drive behind making it so the most powerful motorcycle brand in the world today. And I became quite friendly with them because we have this thing called the Lightning Bolt, which is the best hand-built bike in South Africa, a competition, and with a very big prize. And he was one of the judges, and I was one of the judges, plus another 2 guys. And we got to know each other. And here was, Mr. BMW. This was like meeting God, and we became very friendly. And he arrives tomorrow in Cape Town.
Really?
Yeah.
He's going to be out, I think, for 2 weeks or 10 days, and we're going to do a ride together. So we're probably going to go into what we call the Karoo or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I will probably take the R9, and he'll probably take the GS or something. But, the honor for me to actually be riding with the actual heartbeat of BMW, this icon,
to
go on a ride with me is like extraordinary. I feel so honored. So I'm so seeing him.
And he's very approachable. I had a chat with him at the R1300 premiere, which was his last official,
right? That's
one
right.
of the last official things he had to do. And he told me also about his plans on retirement and traveling the world. So it was really nice to chat with him. So say hi from us to him.
Actually, I will definitely. I found him to be such a humble, gracious person.
Mm-hmm.
You would never think he was what he was ever. There's not a hint of it.
Yeah.
But so I'm really looking forward to that. So that'll be probably one of my first proper rides.
Okay.
So yeah.
So where are you taking him? What's the surrounding of Cape Town for motor riding?
You see, it depends on his timing. So I mean, we have, as you know, we've got beautiful winelands, and then we've got our coastal ride, which goes around what we call our peninsula of the two oceans. We've got the Indian Ocean on one side and the Atlantic on the other. So that's about 120 kilometers, which you could do as a round trip. And if we did that, I would leave very early morning, maybe 5 a.m. in the morning when there's no traffic. Or alternatively, I'll take him out to what we call the Franschhoek area, the winelands area, which again, once you get there, you go to what's an area called Stellenbosch. You go over a mountain pass towards Franschhoek. Then you've got another mountain pass called Teerwaterskloof. Go through that, past this beautiful dam, and then you go a little bit further, and there's another one called Bainskloof, another mountain pass. So it would be a day's ride, but it would be heavenly. It would be heavenly.
Don't make us jealous.
I was totally jealous when I was there 4 weeks ago, and I was there on a business trip, so I just had one day to play a little tourist, and just going like up Chapin's Peak Drive. I'm like, I want to do this on a motorcycle. Just as you described, incredible tarmac, incredible. You after every corner, you're like, I want to live here. I want to move here.
I mean, what I used to do before my accident, I would get up at about 4:30 in the morning, summertime, and I'd go for a 4-hour ride and come back at 9 o'clock in the morning. And my whole family was still fast asleep, but I'd had half a day of riding, It's unbelievable. I mean, you can go to places where you'll find a beach, but there'll be no one on the beach. You strip naked, you jump into that water, come out, get back on the bike, and ride again.
That sounds perfect.
Quite extraordinary. It's quite extraordinary.
That sounds really good.
Yeah.
So it sounds like another destination for a TwinSpark business trip.
Yes, absolutely. I was just heading the chasing the curves in my head with you together.
No, you guys have to do it, and then what we'll do is we'll plan it in advance. We've got a beautiful road called the R62, which I've actually got a house out in that area in a little village called McGregor, which is 170 kilometers from here. But that road, it goes all the way to what we call Oudtshoorn, which is where they've got the Kango Caves. The wonderful thing about the R62 is that they don't have speed traps. And only in the villages. Every village has got a speed trap. The one traffic cop actually hides in a tree.
Okay.
She hides in the tree. But the actual in-between roads is a fantastic surface. And you honestly can. I mean, I've ridden at 280, 300 kilometers an hour along those roads because it's very open. You can see left to right as far as the eye can see, and you can just bullet across there. And it's a beautiful, but there's wonderful places to stop, maybe do a night over, things like that. It's extraordinary. And I highly recommend you guys come out and we'll do a trip like that. It'll be memorable.
All right, Alex.
So many things we have to do, Karina.
Point for our bucket list.
we have to, I think we have to quit our main jobs to follow this.
Exactly.
I think so.
thingy.
I think so too.
I like that.
But speaking of main job, good point, Paul. The House of Machines has 3 other chapters, I would say, all over the world.
Yeah.
How did it develop from your home base in Cape Town to New York, Copenhagen, and Chengdu?
So the aim always was to go global and not local. The aim was never to open up in Johannesburg and Durban and places like that, because we did feel it was more a global brand than a local brand. So we did New York, which we've got at the moment. It is closed because we're doing alterations for fire compliant stuff. So there is New York, which is about 4 times the size of the one in Cape Town, and it really is amazing. I was there for the opening. It's in a very good position, and it's got a strong bike culture already that loves it. And then the other one is actually in Copenhagen, which had just opened about 2.5 months ago, and with a very strong team of guys that are passionate. And it's catching very well. It's catching very, very well. So it is a global brand. Yeah, it will open all over the place. There are plans to open up all over.
Didn't you have also one in LA?
Yeah, we did. So the one in LA was closed like COVID times. And in a sense, maybe COVID helped us because it was fantastic, but I'd say the positioning wasn't great. And the guy that ran it was a great guy, a very famous bike builder, and he's even got his own TV program. But in a lot of ways, if you look at it, he had his business to worry about, not the House of Machines, and vice versa.
Yeah.
It was almost like an unfair pressure on him. So, a lot of ways, maybe a blessing. And in time, we'll definitely open up in LA again. Definitely.
Yeah. So I'll be in LA in August. You have time until then. If you don't open, I have to go to the Bike Shed LA, which is just around the corner from your old venue.
Have you been to the Bike Shed in London yet?
Yes. We also had Dutch here on the podcast last year.
Oh, did you? Oh, wow.
Yes.
I've been dying to go to that. What I did do years ago, and I went to the Ace Cafe in London.
Yeah.
Oh. Very famous. Very famous. And in fact, the owner of Ace Cafe, when he saw my concept that I did with Speedway 105 that I wanted to do, he actually said to me, "You exactly like me. You found this old building. You did this. You did that. And I'd like you to come and meet the board of the Ace Cafe," which I did. And they were amazed at what we had. This was before the House of Machines. And he said to me, "We'd like to offer you the Ace Cafe for South Africa. We don't have it anywhere else in the world. And if you're interested." And I was very gracious about it. And I just said, with respect, I would love to. But I'm probably the only biker in South Africa that knows about the Ace Cafe. And so much as I'd love to say, he said, well, even then, he said, "That's fine. We understand it, but we'll support you with everything that you do." Very nice guy.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So Ace Cafe is also one of the bucket list goals to ride there.
Yeah.
Alex, we have to do a world trip.
It's an amazing.
But we can do something. You come to Berlin. We drive to Copenhagen, to the House of Machines.
On bike.
On bike, absolutely. And then do a nice trip along the coastline of the North Sea. And then take the ferry over to Dover and drive from Dover to London. And once we're there, we can also continue up to the Isle of Man. And once we're there, we can go up more north to Scotland. And so there's like 10 things on my bucket list in one thing.
I love it. We are going to be opening up in Edinburgh.
Oh, no, really?
That's on the cards, yeah.
Oh, so another stop on our route. So I'm very good at route planning. So this is my yoga, planning motorcycle routes. So I'm getting to it. I
love that. That sounds fantastic.
Edinburgh.
Yeah, and then straight down through Africa to the House of Machines.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So just
while we're about
it. At Lac Rose and the Plage Blanche, and to visit Dakar, and then go straight ahead to South Africa.
Imagine.
Okay, now we really do have to quit our jobs and do it in 2 years.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, and also a friend of ours, also one of our first guests on the podcast, he ditched his job, traveled the world in 15 months, and got back to Germany, started his job again, but then He's now living in Johannesburg, and he got stuck in South Africa, and he's now living and working from there after his world trip. And yeah, so that can happen.
You must introduce him to me.
Yeah, absolutely, I will do it.
That'll be lovely.
Ralf, this is your job. Nee, Rolf, I'm sorry.
Rolf.
Yes,
Rolf Lange.
Oh, I was thinking about him and spelling the name wrong. Rolf Lange. I'm so sorry, but heartwarming greets from us to you. And your task is to visit the House of Machines in Cape Town and say greetings from TwinSpark Podcast to Paul in person.
Yeah, and Paul said he can do the ride in one piece on his GS, and Rolf still owns his GS, so no excuse to do 1,600 kilometers from Joburg to Cape Town.
Yeah, exactly. I'll tell you what I am planning to do is that I've got a son who's got a farm in Portugal. And in the central section of Portugal, in a place called Castelo Branco. And I'm a clothing designer, and I sell my clothing at a market. I used to have 6 clothing stores, which fortunately I sold before COVID. And I now trade on this little market called the Aronizuk Farmers Market. But winter for us is quiet. Somehow I go completely mad. So what my plan is now, this is my fantasy trip, because I hate winter as well. So anything below like 27 degrees for me is like close to death. You know, I'm about to die if it's anything below 27 degrees. So
Fahrenheit or Celsius?
Sorry?
Fahrenheit or Celsius?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So what my dream is, my plan is that on the 1st of June that I go over to Portugal, and my son has got a retro motorhome, that I fly there, I manufacture my shirts in Porto, and then we take it with my son, we take the retro motorhome, we go to Ibiza, Porto, Mallorca, and all those coastal resorts, selling my shirts. And then come back 1st November to South Africa.
That's a nice idea. Yeah.
So, but then what I would do in the process, if it works, I will get myself a motorbike that I'll keep on the farm and then start exploring the Mediterranean wherever on bikes. Just take a bike with a little canvas tent or whatever and just discover. That's my dream.
That's quite a good idea. Absolutely.
That's my dream.
We support this idea.
Yeah.
That's the way to go, you know.
So I will be in the south of Spain, but it's in 4 weeks. So a little bit time delay between February and June, but maybe we can align there.
Yeah, exactly. I like that.
Oh, looks
so, Paul, what does the future hold for you regarding motorcycles? Is there something in your bucket list you still need to do apart from what you just told us?
There is. One of my dreams at the moment, and I mean, I am old school. I'm definitely an old school person. I don't know tech at all in any sense. Even my phone is quite a challenge for me. My daughter is a design engineer for Adobe. She's in another level, okay? But I am the exact opposite. So what I'm dying to experience is an electric motorbike, but a high-speed one, not just a little. I want to ride an electric superbike. That's my dream. So that's
a Damon Colossus.
That's going to again make the RR just feel like I'm on a Vespa, you know.
Yeah.
It really will. But so that is one of my dreams, so when it comes to my future and myself with motorbikes, I was actually given the opportunity to remember Norton was reinvented and came out as a brand again. So what actually happened? I'm very friendly with a guy called Pierre Blanche, who was a Ducati designer. Yes, and he did the Paul Smart, and he did the 999 and all those bikes. And he's a very good friend of mine, and he used to wear my clothing a lot. And he was wearing some of my shirts when he was approached by Norton, the guy who started Norton again, to help Norton develop their bikes. And the owner liked the shirts that Pierre was wearing. So he said to him, "You're always wearing these amazing shirts. Where do you get them?" He said, "No, this guy in Cape Town called Paul from Spuy." Next thing, the guy got hold of me and he said, "Look, I want you to design a collection of clothing for me for Norton." And I said, "Yeah, that'd be great." But anyway, subsequently, Pierre got hold of me and said, look, be careful. There seems to be problems there, so hold back. But so, yeah, that was very much part of my life, like some of the stuff that I do. So one of my plans down the road is, because I love industrial clothing, is to start maybe doing a collection of industrial clothing again. I used to have clothing stores called Blue Collar, White Collar.
Mm-hmm.
So the left side of the store was blue collar clothing, which was industrial. On the right side was white collar clothing, which was formal.
Mm-hmm.
But blue collar clothing is actually my real passion and fantasy. So I'd like to sort of develop that again, but not into mainstream high-tech clothing. I'm not a high-tech person for motorcycle clothing, but old school. And so I'd like to do that type of stuff again, linked to bikes, that type of thing. That's what I like. Yeah. So that's where I see it.
Yeah, and also I think the retro scene and also the retro bikes are much more how should I say, much more visible on the roads. I have the impression that, during the last 10 years, more and more people got, their sense of retro feeling in their lives. And so the clothing has to match.
Yeah, definitely. I think the reason behind it, I mean, our bar is very much retro. It's not a high-tech bar, and that's what makes it warm. You see, the way I look at it, my whole philosophy on it is that the reason why retro is strong is because there's comfort in the known. In other words, what was seems to have been better than what is or what's going to be. And so people draw the comfort and stability from what was. It always seems to have been better, always. But it doesn't mean it was, but it seems to have been. And so people love the fantasy of it. So you can actually wear something retro or experience something retro and you just feel so cool. Whereas if you take it high-tech future, it's got no soul. And so my dream with everything that I do, and that's why I have a problem with high-tech bikes and that, is that it's got to have a soul. If it doesn't have a soul, like if you take the modern BMW car, for instance, it's incredible. It does everything perfectly, but it rides. You don't ride the car. It rides you, and you're flying to a corner magnificently, but it's the car doing it. But there's no soul. You're not actually feeling it through the seat of your pants when you go around that corner. Whereas you do that with an old car, when it goes into drift, you can actually feel it through your arse. You actually know where you are. Whereas with a modern bike, you can't. A modern car, even a modern bike, it's done for you. So it loses soul. There's no soul in it. And that's what's missing in modern technology, the soul. That's what I reckon. So bring back the soul.
Yeah, I have the impression with old bikes, old cars, you have to, sometimes the cars or the bikes ride better or drive better if you talk to them. If you say, come on, honey, it's cold, I know it, but just go and let your motor run. And so this, sometimes you have the impression you have a real personality all of or in front of you.
Yeah, it's that. And you know what? I really do believe that people long for that. People actually want to feel the heartbeat of something. They want to feel that car when they're riding it. They actually really do, Whereas, I mean, my wife, she's had some Audis, she's had BMWs and that. And whenever I ride them, I don't enjoy them, Whereas like my old Land Cruiser, I had like an old 58 Cadillac and an old Chrysler. When you go too fast and that tail comes out, you know that it's coming out and you can actually feel it. And you have to take control and make it happen. Whereas with the modern ones, like with anything, like with your phone, I mean, really, give me the old dial phone.
Nevertheless, you have to redial your number about 5 times because it starts to dial if you don't want to. But yeah, that's kind of the frustrating, but also the romanticized memory of this.
I know. I mean, like if you take the phone, like the way we're talking right now, it's amazing that we've got this and we can do this.
Yes, absolutely.
But I can't smell your beer.
And also, I would love to. I would love you to try this beer because it's a very good Bavarian beer. I will bring one to you if I visit South Africa. All right?
You're going to have to when you guys come out. Yeah,
absolutely.
We'll swap beers.
We swap beers. Yeah.
Very good.
I need to tell you that this whole interview has not been me. I'm actually Paul's twin brother. Wouldn't that be amazing?
This would be crazy, yes.
That's why we call it the evil twin,
Yeah, that would be really evil.
Yeah.
Right?
So cool. Paul, this has been a pleasure talking to you, and we have to get you back on the podcast in like a couple of years' time to hear if any of your plans came true and what happened in between. So that's going to be interesting. In the meantime, we tried to haul our asses sometime down to Cape Town to go visit you, have a beer at the House of Machines, and ride the beautiful coastline of South Africa or some passes that actually go quite high in South Africa. I looked it up. So we instead of like ticking things off our bucket list, we just added more.
Yeah.
But some things, all good things to look forward to.
Oh, absolutely. I would so love to see you guys down here and we do something together,
Absolutely.
Celebrate the meaning of life.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time. It was really heartwarming to listen to your how should I say, to your passionate talking about motorcycles. It's really heartwarming, and this is exactly the reason why we do this podcast. Thank you so much.
No, I really appreciate it to speak to like-minded souls in this. Really, I really appreciate and feel honored to be part of this. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So great. Thank you.
See you hopefully soon.
Cheers.